Mongolia is a land that fights back. Wind never rests. Water slips away into dust and distance. Winter cuts like iron. Summer smothers every breath with sand. Yet people still lived, traveled, and survived here. So how did the Mongols stay clean without pipes, bathrooms, or soap? Let's first begin with how they washed. What if the cold itself became your bathroom? In Mongolia, where rivers turn to stone in winter and dust hangs in summer, people learned to wash using heat instead of water through sweat. Bathing in heated shelters, a practice that turns the body into its own cleansing engine. Long before plumbing, Mongol families built small bathing huts beside their girs, or camps. By at least the 12th century, during the rise of Genghis Khan, travelers wrote about steppe people who heated stones in fires and carried them into enclosed spaces to release thick waves of steam. These shelters were simple: felt walls, wooden frames, hides stretched tight, nothing fancy. Everything purposeful. In winter, this method kept people from stripping down in lethal air. In summer, it's cut through dust that water alone could not touch. The secret is heat and sweat. Stones baked in fire were splashed with water or milk. Steam filled the room. Pores opened. Sweat poured. Dirt loosened. Skin breathed again. Ash from the fire was often rubbed onto the body to draw out oil and odor. Then came scraping with bone tools or cloth. No soap, no pipes. Just the body working the way nature designed it to. Inside the shelter, the world disappeared. Frost, wind, wild animals. Gone. Only heat remained. Muscles softened, breath slowed. The smell of smoke mixed with wool and earth. People emerged, pink-skinned and light, as if winter itself had been peeled away. Even today, this tradition survives in rural Mongolia and echoes in modern saunas across the country. It is remembered not as luxury, but rather as a survival. Heat was hygiene. Steam was safety. But sweat was only the beginning. What happened when winter stripped away even warmth and water vanished into ice and dust? The next method takes cleanliness into the frozen heart of the steppe itself. What kind of people use ice as soap and blizzards as showers? On the Mongolian steppe, winter does not arrive gently. It crashes in with winds that can split skin and darkness that lasts for weeks. Rivers lock into stone. Water hides under meters of snow. Yet life does not pause, and neither does cleanliness. When liquid water vanished, Mongolian families turned to the only thing still within reach: snow. This practice stretches back to the era of the great nomad empires, long before the rise of Genghis Khan in the early 1200s. Travelers like the Persian historian Rashid al-Din and later Marco Polo wrote about the toughness of steppe life, where survival meant working with what nature offered instead of waiting for mercy. In winter, that meant using packed snow to scrub the body clean. It began before dawn. A person would step outside the gear, breath instantly turning to mist. Fresh snow was gathered by hand, sometimes warmed briefly near embers so it would soften without melting. Then the washing began. Arms first, shoulders next. The neck, the face. The shock burned, the cold stung. But the snow scraped dirt, sweat, and oil away. When it brushed the skin, it didn't soak like water. It lifted grime and carried it off in white flakes. The secret was speed. Snow cleaning was fast and light. No long exposure. No standing still. Just quick motion, then back to warmth. Afterward, the body tingled as blood rushed back to the surface. In a strange way, it felt alive, sharp, reset. This method also kept clothes fresher. Snow shaken through fur coats pulled insects and dust from the fibers. It freshened felt boots. It scoured stains from hems. The steppe turned into a vast white wash basin. Even today, herding families in western Mongolia still use snow to rinse hands or clean tools when winter deepens and streams disappear. It isn't nostalgia, it's practicality. Snow washings carried discipline with them. Endurance was part of identity. Cleanliness was not about comfort. It was about readiness. When your life depends on your body, you treat it with care, even in cruel conditions. But winter did not always give snow forever. When ice sealed the earth and even snow became hard to use, another solution crept out of the fire itself, curling into the air like a quiet promise of purification. Long before roads, plumbing, and tiled bathrooms, the the Mongols learned to coax warmth out of the land itself. When night fell across the steppe and wind scraped the skin raw, they stepped into small shelters warmed by fire and stone. Inside, the air grew heavy. Breath slowed. Sweat began to rise through the skin like a second breath. This was the Mongols' answer to bathing, when rivers froze solid and water vanished for months at a time. Archaeologists believe forms of sweat bathing were already known among nomadic peoples of Central Asia as early as the Xiongnu period, over 2,000 years ago. By the time of Genghis Khan in the 1200s, heated shelters were quietly woven into daily life across Mongol camps. Travelers like William of Rubruck, who entered Mongol territory in 1253, recorded their surprise at seeing warriors cleanse themselves with heat instead of water, using steam and smoke where Europeans would have expected baths. The shelter itself was simple, a small enclosed space, sometimes built from felt like a yurt, sometimes from packed earth or timber. Stones were heated in a fire, then brought inside. Water, if available, might be dripped onto them, but often the heat alone did the work. The body responded quickly. Pores opened, salt spilled from the skin, dust loosened its grip. Smoke from drying herbs or dung fires clung to clothing and hair, acting as both deodorizer and insect repellent. In winter, sweat bathing did more than clean bodies. It drove cold from the bones. Elder herders believed it restored energy after long rides. Mothers brought children inside after illnesses, trusting heat to chase sickness away. Skin left glowing. Muscles softened. Breath returned deeper and steadier. Even today, traces of the practice survive in rural Mongolia. Wooden bath huts still stand behind modern houses. Families still heat stones the old way during illness or deep winter. The belief holds firm that heat carries away more than dirt. It carries away fatigue, heaviness, and bad fortune clinging close to the skin. And yet, when the fire went low and the stones cooled, another question waited in the wings. What happened when warmth alone was not enough? When water was frozen, fire had burned out, and dirt still clung from days of riding? The next method answers with something no one expects at all. Dust crawls into everything on the steppe: hair, clothes, skin. Even the air feels gritty on certain days. So what happens when water is too precious to waste and soap does not exist? How do you wash yourself when rivers are far away and winter turns liquid into stone? For the Mongols, the answer was already under their feet. Ash from last night's fire, dry sand from the open plains. This method goes back centuries. Records from travelers like Giovanni da Pian del Carpine in 1246 and William of Rubruck in 1254 describe nomadic camps that carried little water but plenty of firewood, dung fuel, and dust. Every hearth left behind soft gray ash. Every valley offered clean sand after the wind had swept it dry. People learned early that these simple materials lifted grease and sweat from the body when water could not. Ash was the first tool. Wood ash contains natural minerals that break down oil. When rubbed into the scalp or hands, it binds to dirt in the same way modern detergent does. Mongols would dust it into hair, massage the skin, then shake or brush it away. The grime went with it. What remained felt lighter, cooler, cleaner. Sand came next. Fine, dry sand worked like a gentle scrub. It loosened dead skin and dried moisture without tearing the surface. In warmer months, people rubbed sand across their arms and legs after long rides. In winter, they avoided water altogether and relied on dry cleaning instead. Even babies were cleaned this way, wrapped warm afterward to prevent chills that could turn dangerous within minutes. The result was not perfume or softness. The result was comfort. The itch faded. The heaviness lifted. The skin could breathe again. This practice still survives in remote herding areas today. Elders teach children how to feel for the cleanest sand and how to sift ash from the fire without touching a coal. It is not taught from books. It is passed through hands. And then there is smoke. Because when ash and sand cleanse the skin, smoke goes deeper. It seeps into cloth and hair, carrying insects and odor away with it. When the fire crackles low and blue and the air grows warm and hazy, another form of cleaning is about to begin. What if the air itself could wash you? Not with water, not with soap, but with a slow river of heat and scent drifting from a fire. On the Mongolian steppe, where wells were distant and rivers froze solid, the rising smoke inside a shelter did more than warm hands. It cleaned skin, clothing, hair, and even the air people breathed. This practice grew out of daily survival, not ceremony. By the time of the Xiongnu Confederation more than 2,000 years ago, smoke had already become part of Mongolian life. Every gear depended on a central hearth, fed with wood, dung, and dry grass. Over centuries, families noticed something unexpected. After long winters sealed inside their shelters, clothes passed through. Thick hearth smoke smelled sharper, felt fresher, and stayed free of insects longer. Nomadic herders began hanging garments near the roof opening so smoke could roll through every fiber. Blankets, boots, coats, and saddles were left to breathe in heat and haze. The secret is simple and powerful. Smoke carries natural compounds that push away bacteria, mold, mites, and fleas. The fire's heat gently dries what cannot be washed. Without water, moisture is the enemy. Damp cloth rots. Sweat turns sour. Smoke solves both. It dries without scorching. It disinfects without scrubbing. It leaves behind a smell that insects instinctively avoid. Inside a gur at dusk, the scene is slow and quiet. Blue-gray smoke curls upward. Wool coats hang like sleeping animals. The air grows warm and sharp with cedar or dung fire. Boots placed near the embers release the scent of leather and grass. Hair absorbs a faint campfire note that follows a rider across the steppe for days. It is not perfume, yet it becomes part of identity. Even today, herders still rely on this method. In remote areas where modern detergents are rare, smoke keeps bedding usable and clothing wearable through brutal weather. Some families say you can tell where a person comes from simply by the scent of their coat. But smoke did more than clean cloth and skin. It shaped how Mongolians understood cleanliness itself. Clean did not mean wet. It meant dry, warm, and free of decay. And if smoke could cleanse without water, what happened when even fire was scarce? The next method enters the world of dust and ash, where the earth itself became soap. Hot water was never wasted on the Mongolian steppe. It arrived like a rare visitor, welcomed, used carefully, and gone just as fast. So when Mongolian families washed with heat, it was not for comfort. It was for necessity. In a land where rivers ran thin and winter ice could split stone, heating water took real effort. Dried dung and scrubgrass fueled small stoves and open fires. Every drop had to be carried. Every flame had to be earned. That is why hot water washing in Mongolia was never full-body soaking. It was precise, restrained, and purposeful. By the time of the Mongol Empire in the 1200s, travelers like William of Rubruck noted how water was treated like something sacred. People cleaned only what mattered most: hands, face, feet, sometimes hair. A wooden bowl or leather basin would be filled with warm water, just enough to loosen dirt and melt sweat. Cloths made from felt or wool were dipped and wrung out until most of the heat remained in the fibers, not wasted in dripping water. The bathing itself happened fast. Warm fabric pressed against skin, steam rising for a few seconds in the open air. Then it was over. The rest of the body kept its protective layer of oils and dust, which actually helped shield skin from windburn and frost. Children learned early not to linger. Elders reminded them that hot water was as valuable as livestock in winter. To waste it was unthinkable. When illness came, the rules softened. A fever might earn a full heated wipe down. A wounded traveler might be washed more carefully, not with luxury, but with urgency. Today, herding families in remote areas still practice versions of this. The tools have changed. Thermoses, metal kettles, portable stoves. But the logic is the same. Warmth is conserved. Water is respected. Cleanliness never meant excess. It was about staying human in a landscape that stripped comfort away daily. Warm water was not an escape from the cold. It was a brief negotiation with it. Clean skin was only half the battle on the Mongolian steppe. When water is rare and the ground itself becomes your home, another problem shapes daily life just as deeply. What happens after meals, after journeys, after long nights in the wind? Now the story moves from washing to waste and how the land itself became the answer. What happens when a land offers no walls, no pipes, and no private rooms? Only endless sky and moving earth. On the Mongolian steppe, using the toilet was never hidden. It unfolded in the open world, shaped by wind, distance, and a deep awareness of the land beneath one's feet. Long before cities took root, the Mongols lived as pastoral nomads. By the time of Genghis Khan in the early 1200s, entire armies crossed Asia without carrying latrines or stopping to build them. Camps rose and vanished in days. Waste, like everything else, returned to the land directly. There were no pits to dig and no structures to maintain. The steppe itself handled disposal through space, sunlight, cold, and time. The secret lay in movement. Families never stayed in one place long enough for waste to build up. Herds grazed in wide arcs. Tents shifted with the seasons. One area was used once and then left behind, sometimes not returned to for years. In winter, the frozen earth locked waste in place, stopping smell and insects. In summer, dry air and ultraviolet light broke it down quickly. Wind scattered moisture. Soil absorbed what remained. Where someone chose to go mattered. Nomads walked downwind from camp, far from water sources. Clean pasture had priority. Streams were respected. Ground near animals stayed untouched. This was not randomness. It followed a code passed from elders to children, built on survival rather than rules written on paper. Even warriors observed it. In the secret history of the Mongols, chroniclers described strict discipline not just in bathe but in cleanliness. Polluting water sources was punished. Carelessness invited disease. A sick rider was a lost rider. A ruined pasture meant a starving herd. Today, in remote parts of Mongolia, the old method still appears. Shepherds alone with their animals rely on distance and direction rather than doors and stalls. Urban residents adapt it with modern tools, but on the open grasslands, the old rhythm continues without ceremony. There is no echo of plumbing here, only wind across grass, only boot prints fading behind the body as it walks back to camp. And if this depended on air and distance, the next custom relied on fire and instinct. Because what happened after mattered just as much as what was left behind. Where does a toilet go when the land itself is your home? On the Mongolian steppe, there were no doors to close, no floors to scrub, no stone walls to hide behind. The horizon was the bathroom. And that wide open space shaped how people lived more than any building ever could. For nomadic Mongols, digging latrine pits was impractical and often impossible. Much of the land is frozen solid for months at a time. In other regions, the soil is dry, rocky, or wind-packed as bone. Camps moved with the seasons, sometimes every few weeks. Any pit dug would soon be abandoned, quickly filled by drifting sand or snow. Building permanent structures made no sense when the home itself was designed to disappear without a trace. Instead, waste returned directly to the earth. Families selected open areas far from water sources and campsites. Wind direction mattered, so did distance. Elders taught children to walk downwind and away from wells, rivers, and grazing animals. This was not careless behavior. It was environmental discipline learned over generations. The grasslands absorb quickly. Sun and wind drew what moisture remains. Insects and soil bacteria break down what is left. Without dense population, without buildings trapping filth, without stagnant water to spread disease, waste vanished back into the land within days. Nature handled the work. Foreign travelers noticed this difference centuries ago. Persian historian Ata Malik Juvaini, writing in the 1200s, described Mongol camps as surprisingly clean despite having no toilets at all. Marco Polo later commented on how camps were kept orderly in a way that puzzled Europeans accustomed to crowded medieval cities full of waste and disease. Mongol health reflected this system. They rarely suffered the cholera and dysentery outbreaks that plagued tightly packed towns in China and Europe. Disease had no place to linger when families were always moving and waste was never piled in one place. Even today, herders in remote regions still follow similar practices. Portable modern toilets are rare. The land remains the solution. But what happens when there is no pit, no trench, no hole at all? Next, we step into the most misunderstood aspect of nomadic life, where the rules were not written in stone, but in wind and distance. What does a traveler reach for when there is no paper, no cloth, and no place to hide a single modern comfort? On the open Mongolian steppe, the answer was right underfoot. The land itself became the bathroom cabinet. Grass, snow, stones, and even wood took on quiet roles in daily hygiene. Long before cities or plumbing, Mongol herders learned to read the terrain the way others read shelves and drawers. In spring and summer, tall steppe grasses were torn into soft bundles and used gently, then discarded to the wind. In winter, when the world froze hard, snow became the most trusted companion. Fresh snow cleaned and cooled at the same time. It melted away in seconds, leaving no trace behind. In arid regions where grass was scarce, smooth stones shaped by rivers were favored. Certain families even kept rounded pieces selected for comfort, passed quietly from season to season. Tamarisk branches and strips of bark were also used, especially near wooded valleys. Wood shaved thin could be surprisingly gentle. Dry moss gathered from shaded slopes added another option. Each region shaped its own habits. Nothing was wasted, nothing was random. Everything followed landscape and season. Hygiene on the steppe depended on care, not convenience. People avoided touching sensitive areas with rough edges. They learned which grasses snapped too easily and which bent softly. Elders taught children which stones were safe, which snow was clean, and when moisture was a risk instead of a relief. Knowledge mattered more than materials. Today, these methods survive mostly in memory and in remote camps far beyond paved roads and tourist brochures. Anthropologists recorded these details while traveling with herding families in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Elders spoke calmly about snow, grass, and stone the way others speak about mirrors and sinks. Modern travelers sometimes dismiss these habits as primitive, but on the steppe, survival depends on knowing your land as well as you know your own body. Clean living came not from factories, but from familiarity. The earth never judged. It simply offered. And when there were no tools, no fabric, no convenience, there was still dignity. Hygiene followed patience, it followed weather, it followed the animal paths and the seasons. But what happens when you live without latrines, toilets, or even holes in the ground, when privacy itself must be renegotiated beneath endless sky? That quiet adjustment comes next. When night falls on the Mongolian steppe, fire becomes more than warmth. It becomes the final act of cleanliness. For nomadic families thousands of years ago, waste could not simply be forgotten. Left behind, it attracted animals, carried disease, and marked the camp in ways no traveler wanted to leave. The Mongols lived light, moved often, and trusted fire to erase what could not be carried. Human waste, animal dung, and used cleaning materials were often burned rather than buried. The open grasslands rarely offered soft soil or deep cover. In frozen months, the ground was stone. When summer came, the earth baked hard. Fire solved the problem with certainty. Dried dung already served as fuel across the steppe. Horse, sheep, and camel waste dried quickly under the endless sky. Adding waste into the hearth kept camps cleaner and discouraged insects. Ash couldn't rot. Smoke didn't linger. The wind pulled scent and remnants away from the living space. This practice also held spiritual weight. Many Mongols followed Tengrism, an earth-honoring belief that saw pollution as imbalance. Fire was cleansing. It removed danger before it could settle. Even today, among herding families, waste is not treated casually. It is handled with awareness of wind, distance, and consequence. Foreign travelers noticed this long ago. In the 1200s, Persian historian Atamalik Juvayni wrote about Mongol camps that vanished without trace. No trash, no stench, no signs of life beyond flattened grass. That was not carelessness. It was discipline. Burning also protected paths and water routes. Streams remained clear when waste never touched the flow. Camping zones stayed usable when nothing accumulated. Nomads could return months later and find the land quiet and unchanged. Today, modern Mongolia uses different systems, but in the countryside, older habits remain. Fires still burn at dusk. Dung still dries against wooden fences. Waste disappears into flame and air, not hidden, not ignored. Yet fire does something else too. It leaves silence. No pits, no refuse. No trace that a family once ate, slept, and lived under such an open sky. But if fire was how the Mongols erased their evidence, what happened when there was nothing left to burn and nowhere to hide it? The final tradition reveals how they handled the last trace of human presence on a moving world. On the open steppe, nothing disappears on its own. The wind carries smoke for miles, but waste stays where it falls. So the Mongols learned a harsh truth early. If you do not control what is left behind, it will control you. Burning waste became part of daily survival. Dry dung, scraps of food, bones, and soiled materials were gathered into small fires downwind from camp. Flames erased scent. Smoke chased insects. Heat destroyed what could rot, spread illness, or attract animals in the night. Fire turned danger into ash, and ash into something harmless. On a land without running water, this was cleanliness by flame. Travelers such as Giovanni de Payan del Carpin wrote in the 1200s that Mongol camps were kept strikingly free of filth for people who lived without towns or drains. Marco Polo later noted how fires followed camps the way shadows follow the body. When the herds moved, the ashes were scattered, leaving little trace that tens of people had ever rested there. And when the flames die down, another necessity waits in the dark: heat. Because on the steppe, staying clean is only half the battle. Staying warm is the next story.